Very latest, a new policy at the Pentagon that would require reporters to pledge that they won't gather or use information, even unclassified information, that hasn't been expressly authorized for release, and will revoke the press passes of reporters who do not obey. That's a policy you might expect to see in China, Russia, or North Korea, but not in the United States. And the move at the Pentagon follows a series of steps by the federal government to silence voices seen as critical of President Trump. President Trump began the week by suing the New York Times for defamation, alleging articles in a book by reporters were, quote, specifically designed to try and damage his business, personal, and political reputation. That lawsuit was thrown out on Friday by a federal judge who called the complaint, quote, improper and impermissible, and said the president's lawsuit attempted to use the courts to rage against an adversary. While President Trump was suing the New York Times, Attorney General Pam Bondi said the Justice Department would crack down on what she called hate speech.
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything, and that's across the aisle.
That comment drew backlash, including from some of Donald Trump's most high-profile allies.
There's no sentence that Charlie Kirk would have objected to more than that. Any attempt to impose hate speech laws in this country is a denial of the humanity of American citizens and cannot be allowed under any circumstances. That's got to be the red line.
On Tuesday, I asked the president about the Attorney General's comments.
What do you think Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
We probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC.
And on Wednesday, it was the chairman of the FCC that threatened to use the power of the government to silence the president's critics.
We can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
Chairman Brendan Carr was referring to Jimmy Kimmel and these comments he made after the murder of Charlie Kirk.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Shortly after Carr's threat, two of the largest owners of local stations across the country, Nexstar and Sinclair, said they would stop airing Jimmy Kimmel Live. This as Nexstar is in the middle of a merger deal with another media company, a deal that requires Carr's FCC approval to move forward. Disney ABC then announced it would indefinitely suspend Jimmy Kimmel Live, sparking an intense debate over free speech. Carr, however, suggested the FCC would continue to put pressure on television stations.
We at the FCC are going to enforce the public interest obligation. If there's broadcasters out there that don't like it, they can turn their license into the FCC, but that's our job.
President Trump praised Disney's decision and targeted NBC late-night hosts Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers as the next that should go, writing on social media, "Do it, NBC." And Trump suggested the FCC revoke licenses from broadcasters that are critical of him.
They give you only bad publicity, press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away. It will be up to Brendan Carr.
The FCC's actions drew bipartisan criticism.
That is censorship. It is disgusting. It is a violation of the First Amendment.
I think it is unbelievably dangerous for government to put itself in the position of saying, we're going to decide what speech we like and what we don't, and we're going to threaten to take you off air if we don't like what you're saying.
Some legal experts doubt Carr has the right to strip licenses based on political content, but not President Trump.
They have to show honesty and integrity. And when
who determines that?
When they take a good, well, I think the people decide. That's why I'm president. When they take a great success, like you often do, and you make it into like it's a loser, or you put a negative spin on it, I don't think that's right. So I think Brendan Carr is a great American patriot. So I disagree with Ted Cruz on that.
And in another effort to go after his critics this week, the president forced out the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, after his office failed to find any incriminating evidence of mortgage fraud against New York Attorney General Letitia James. James has long been in Trump's crosshairs after she successfully prosecuted the Trump Organization for fraud. After U.S. Attorney Siebert failed to prosecute James, Trump told me he wanted Siebert out. Hours later, he submitted his resignation. And overnight, an extraordinary statement from President Trump. It appeared to be a direct message to his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, but it was posted on Truth Social for the world to see, pressuring her to prosecute his political enemies. The president wrote in part, Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time. All talk, no action, nothing is being done. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice. They indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And I am joined now by Democratic Senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy. Senator Murphy, let's start right there with those words towards Pam Bondi. The president mentioned some of his enemies, including James Comey, the former FBI director, Letitia James. It sounds like he is directly ordering his attorney general to prosecute his enemies.
This is one of the most dangerous moments America has ever faced. We are quickly turning into a banana republic. The President of the United States is now employing the full power of the federal government, the FCC, the Department of Justice, in order to punish, lock up, take down off the air all of his political enemies. As you know, this is what happens in Iran. This is what happens in Cuba. This is what happens in China, in deeply repressive states, in which if you have the courage to stand up and speak truth to power, you are silenced. I mean, there is no more fundamental right in America than the right to protest your government. And the question today is, when is enough for Republicans? I was very glad to see Ted Cruz stand up and say what is simply true. It is unconstitutional and deeply immoral for the president to jail or to silence his political enemies. And it will come back and boomerang on conservatives and Republicans at some point if this becomes the norm. But next week, we need every Republican in the Senate, in the House, not only speaking up, but going to Donald Trump and telling him that they are not going to let him get away with this massive new contraction of speech. This is a decisive moment for the country. It is a decisive moment for Republicans who have to decide to preserve this core, fundamental American value, the freedom of speech.
I've got to tell you, just this week, you had more crazy talk from Democrats calling the Republicans fascists. And, you know, I mean, it's not stopping. When will it stop? What can you do as an elected official to take down the rhetoric, to be more like Charlie, so we all can come together in some way? It's ridiculous that your colleagues on the left won't stop.
Look, there is so much anger and hate. Unfortunately, today's Democrat Party defines itself by anger and hatred of Donald Trump. And I will tell you, after Charlie was murdered, the number of leftists, whether Democrat politicians or left-wing activists or teachers or professors who celebrated, it was grotesque, the celebrations and the glorifications. And I will tell you, this is a problem that is overwhelmingly on the left. We have seen over and over again acts of violence, politically motivated violence from the left, whether it is the murder of Charlie Kirk, the 2 attempted assassinations of President Donald Trump, the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh, the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa riots all across this country, the congressional baseball game shooting where the shooter came to D.C. and said, I want to find a Republican congressman to murder. This is fundamentally wrong. And Maria, I know you've seen the same polling I have that have shown among those left of center, a majority think it is justifiable to engage in violence against Elon Musk or Donald Trump. That is frightening, that is wrong, and we should be unequivocal. Violence is always, always, always wrong. There are people on the left I disagree with, but no one should engage in acts of violence to them. And I'll tell you, just on Friday, I spoke at a memorial to Charlie in Houston. It was a Texas Youth Summit, and thousands of young people came out. And there were a lot of tears there. There was a lot of celebration. But my message to those young people was, if the other side is nasty, if they are hateful, Do not respond in kind. Respond with love. Be like Charlie. That was my message. And I also said to the group, I said, you know what? Maybe there's another Charlie Kirk here. Maybe there's 2. Maybe there's 5. Maybe there's 10. Maybe there's 100. And it is my hope that Charlie, living his life the way he did, will inspire millions of others to do the same.
President Trump, of course, is going to speak. What do you think we take away from this after today?
Well, Charlie touched many people. Many people knew him well. He worked incredibly hard for President Trump's reelection. He helped energize and turn out young people. President Trump in 24 got an historic high-water mark among young people, and I think Charlie played an integral part of that. I think you're going to hear those stories. But I'll tell you something remarkable that we're going to hear. I think we are going to hear the gospel today. You know, Charlie recently did an interview where he was asked, how do you want to be remembered? And he kind of stopped and said, you mean if I died? And they said, yeah. And he said, I want to be remembered for the courage of my faith.
Yes, yes.
And Charlie became one of the most important Christian evangelists and Christian apologists this world has ever seen. I think he really carried on the tradition of C.S. Lewis, apologetics, defending and explaining the faith. And you know, I put out on my podcast a segment earlier this year where Charlie was on with Bill Maher. And Bill Maher, brilliant guy, funny guy, but not a Christian, and famously an atheist, quite proudly an atheist. Yeah. And the two of them have a conversation where Bill, it's around Easter time, and he asks Charlie about the phrase, he is risen. And Bill says, he always thought it was strange, that's present tense. It's not he was risen, it's he is risen. That's right. And Charlie took the opportunity to say, well, Bill, that's because he is risen today. It is a real fact. It is not just an historical fact 2,000 years ago. It is a real fact today that Jesus is there in your life to be with you, that he is risen for you right now, and it transcends time. And it was interesting. Bill sat back and went, I never thought of it that way. And that is a gift to spread the gospel, and I think today we're going to hear that message amplified over and over again.
Save young men, just like the one who took his life. That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love.
Extremely powerful moment there. Vice President J.D. Vance also spoke. He suggested using Kirk's legacy as a way to usher in a new chapter for the political right, calling the event a revival.
Built a movement. He transformed the face of conservatism in our own time, and in doing so, he changed the course of American history. To rising generations across this country, Charlie exemplified kindness, courage, and a commitment to open debate.
It's not just an attack on one man or one movement. It was an attack on our entire nation. That was a horrible attack on the United States of America. It was an assault on our most sacred liberties and God-given rights. The gun was pointed at him, but the bullet was aimed at all of us. That bullet was aimed at every one of us. I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that none of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history.
Trying to kill President Trump in Florida last year is due back in court. Ryan Ruth, who is representing himself, is expected to call 3 witnesses to the stand. That list includes a firearms expert and potential character witnesses. Ruth is facing a number of charges, including the attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate. If convicted, he could face life behind bars.